The connections of November Nachingala nearly missed today's weigh-in after a false fire alarm at their hotel.
I guess the bell's ringing a bit earlier than you want on a fight day.
Yeah, the boys all started shadow sparring up the street.
Both boxers eventually made the weight at just over 57 kilograms, both equally confident of victory.
Yeah, I'm feeling good, I'm ready to fight, I'm up into preparing for this fight.
He's just focused on his fight, and he knows that he's going to be a big fight, and he's going to do it, win.
The fight has increased importance for November Nachingala, with the news of victory would ensure a WBC world title bout by the end of the year. It's also a special night for Robert Hobson, whose son Lance died after collapsing in the ring last month.
It's very emotional, both for my wife and myself, but mate, I'm looking forward to the night.
Preparations were still underway at the Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium today for the first Lance Hobson Memorial Trophy Fight Night. All proceeds will go to the Hunters Homeless Children, Lance's favourite charity. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Around 4,000 gun owners yesterday turned out to demonstrate against the Howard government gun laws. Today, event organisers were praising their response.
And we were greatly encouraged by the size of the attendance, the fact that the crowd was peaceful, and that many people came as families, because for most people, shooting is a family sport.
Mr Pearson says the rally was of great value to hunter gun owners. Before yesterday, many of them were unsure of how the new firearm laws would affect them. Now they are informed, he says the fight for their democratic rights will be even stronger. The gun laws have also come under fire from the Hunter Region Greens, but it's in no way a victory for the shooters. Ian McKenzie says while the laws are a step in the right direction, they're not tough enough.
We should be working towards a society which is relatively free of guns and gun usage.
I think that smacks of gun phobia and discriminates against the rights of every responsible firearm owner in Australia.
Member for Patterson Bob Baldwin today said while he doesn't agree with the agenda of yesterday's meeting, he does support all Australians' right of free speech. Simone Thurtell, NBN News. HIV and AIDS are still tragic facts of the 90s. Medical technology has not yet advanced enough to find a cure for the debilitating virus. However, a new treatment is assisting in the fight. It's been made available through a compassionate access scheme where a drug company supplies medical practitioners with the drugs in exchange for progress information.
We have 3 drugs that have been around for some time, and many people have used those and their virus has become resistant. We now have 5 new drugs, and it's important that we use them in combination so that further resistance doesn't occur.
According to Newcastle's Dr Sutherland, the combination drugs have changed the lives of many AIDS sufferers.
Well, they've gone back to work, they've had a new lease on life, they've been able to go surfing and diving and do all those normal things that we enjoy doing. It's been a real breakthrough.
But these rewarding results are being soured by fears that with the trial over, the federal government may decline to fund continuing treatments. These drugs are at the forefront of treatment of HIV/AIDS. Losing free access could have devastating consequences for patients who have come to rely on them.
There will be a few wealthy people who will be able to buy it, and I would be happy to provide it for them. The vast majority will miss out.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News. The narrow and winding road to Nelson Bay has claimed many lives over the years. In a bid to lower the accident rate, a dual carriageway has replaced a dangerous section at Bob's Farm. The 1.5 kilometres allows overtaking opportunities, and this should reduce frustration for motorists.
With this road, if you knew how many vehicles come across it, it's one of the many black spots, and it should alleviate some of the problems.
The section cost $1.5 million and is part of a long-term process to upgrade other sections. More than 10,000 motorists use the Nelson Bay Road each day. Port Stephens Council is warning local drivers to take care on the new conditions.
So our engineers suggested that one of their concerns was the locals, familiarity breeds contempt, and if they come along expecting, say, tonight, and it will be open today, come along tonight and zip up the old road and it's one way, let's hope not.
The boxing community came to honour Lance Hobson, the young Novocastrian boxer who died after collapsing in the ring last month. Mexico's Erisol Nakamundi and South Africa's November Nachingala fighting for the honour to become the first boxer to win the Lance Hobson Memorial Trophy. Nachingala came dressed as a Zulu warrior, and it wasn't long before his Mexican opponent knew he was in a battle zone. Opinion was divided over whether the fall in the second round was a slip, but there was no doubt about Nakamendi's standing 8 count in the third. The Mexican went down again in the fourth, but Nakamendi refused to throw in the towel, fighting back well in rounds 5 and 6. The South African's extra strength and skill eventually took its toll in the 7th, a vicious uppercut knocking the Mexican out of the fight. November Nachingala could now get the chance to fight for the world title before the end of the year. Earlier in the night, Wyong boxer Mark Bajiro won the New South Wales middleweight title on points against fellow Central Coast boxer Paul Smallman. All proceeds from the pre-fight raffles around the country and ticket sales will go towards Lance Hobson's favourite charity, homeless children. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Landfill pressures may drive the waste recycling debate, but the need to act as good environmental citizens convinced Lake Macquarie, Newcastle, Maitland and Cessnock councils to set up the Hunter Resource Recovery Company to provide a regional curbside recycling service. That's why Newcastle's 11th hour decision to quit the company has upset its former partners.
We're very disappointed that they're pulled out, and I'm particularly disappointed that they left it so long to tell us. They really left it to the very last moment they could. And it's made it much more difficult for us.
Newcastle Council's withdrawal means the Resource Recovery Company will have to be dismantled and then restructured as a three-way partnership. That'll take at least a month, and then tenders for the recycling service itself will have to be called again.
It is very frustrating, and it's obviously there's some expense involved in it too, and there is some view that perhaps Newcastle City Council should share a greater burden in covering those costs.
With Newcastle out, the whole equation has changed. Unwilling now to use the Summerhill depot, the councils will have to find a new site for their recycling centre. And with projected client numbers slashed from 140,000 to just over 90,000, the reduced economies of scale could push up the service cost per household. If it becomes too expensive, the remaining councils can also be expected to back away from recycling. Ian Cameron, NBN News. The teenage years are all about learning, but sometimes the things they learn are wrong, especially in the eyes of the law. Today's crime prevention workshop for hundreds of Year 9 students was, according to its organisers, the right lesson at the right time.
It's at this age many children are coming across some of the circumstances like alcohol and drugs and driving so we think it's very important they know their rights and responsibilities.
For many students, it was their first brush with the law and a real hands-on experience. At this range, though, the kids can see through the stereotypes.
They usually only see police in a role of authority, and today is a role that they can just see police as human beings.
But what's the bottom line? What have you learned from the police today?
Don't get into any trouble. That's all.
You can enjoy yourself just the same. Like, you don't have to get in trouble. You don't have to follow your friends just to be cool.
I didn't know much, but today I learned heaps.
Well, what do you think of the police now?
They're alright, some of them. They're pretty cool.
The crime prevention workshops have been running in Hunter high schools for 3 years, helping to keep thousands of teenagers on the right track.
Firemen were called to the Ingle Street units soon after 10, quick work limiting serious damage to just one of the block of 4.
There was extensive damage to this unit and smoke and some water damage to the adjoining units.
People arriving home feared the worst with smoke pouring out of the block.
So where's the fire? And they said, in those units. I thought, which one? And I didn't know, and it just made it worse.
Apart from the smoke, Judy's unit was relatively unscathed. While the cause of the fire is yet to be confirmed, it's thought it may have started in a bedroom, possibly after a heater was left on by mistake. There was no one in the unit when the blaze broke out. With the start of the cold weather, the fire brigade has warned people to be careful. And in a separate incident, a small gas leak was controlled at Waratah. A gardener hit a pipe while digging his soil. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Coming into winter and the wildfires are turning up the heat. Their last 2 games have been impressive, taking Gordon to the wire and accounting for Penrith. But if there is a weakness, it's in the line-out. The Newcastle forwards lack height and Norths have a big pack.
The taller timber just gives them the opportunity to pull that ball down neatly and attack you, so we've been working on ways to try and counter that.
Both teams are on 4 points. Last year was an historic clash for the Wildfires. Norths was the first team they beat.
And we'd like to repeat the days.
To basketball, and the Falcons are up against the North Melbourne Giants at the Entertainment Centre tomorrow night. Former Falcon Tony Jensen is coming, although there is still a question about his injured ankle. Newcastle's Scotty Ninnis, who was also under a cloud, will play. And in the split round in local league, there are only 3 games, all on Sunday. Lakes play Maitland, Central clashes with Cessnock and West take on Curry. And in the State Soccer League, Adamstown Rosebuds play Warringah at Adamstown Oval tomorrow afternoon.
7 leading vascular surgeons came to watch and learn at Lake Macquarie Private Hospital today. The medical condition to be corrected known as an aortic aneurysm, a weak spot in the main artery with the potential to balloon and ultimately burst with fatal consequences. The conventional operation involves a large opening in the abdomen and the movement of major organs to repair the weakened artery. But that involves some risk and results in a 10 to 12-day stay in hospital. Today's operation, supervised by Dr. Geoffrey White of Royal Prince Alfred Hospital and Sydney University, uses an endovascular technique, working inside the artery to insert a Dacron sleeve. Not new in itself, but this was the first time the operation has been done outside Sydney using a new French-made device that's undergoing clinical trials in Australia.
This is to chill the device and make it go down to its, so it's right down. So it'll be easier to deploy.
Already used in around 1,000 operations in Europe, the device has an ingenious temperature-sensitive spring inside the Dacron sleeve. The spring is made of nitinol, a metal developed for space station aerials. By chilling it down, it shrinks. Once inserted in the artery, body temperature expands the spring, holding the sleeve firm inside the artery. The whole operation is done using an X-ray machine to provide a roadmap of the arterial system. Medical staff working in lead aprons for protection.
This is where it goes in the artery.
You've got that, yep. Not all aneurysm cases are suitable candidates, artery size and shape amongst the limiting factors. But those patients who can benefit could be up in about a day or so. The $6,000 price tag of the device more than compensated for by the reduction in hospital time. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Brendan May from Thornton near Maitland has been driving karts since he was 7. His dad Ron is the mechanic, investing more time and money in the race kart than the family car. Already with 5 junior state titles and a national championship to his credit, Brendan has won a sponsorship deal with a kart building company that will put him into the running with Europe's best in Belgium next month.
I think the competition will be very tough. They're always very good from Europe and around the places like that. In the future, I hope to be maybe one day a Formula 1 driver.
Most weekends, Brendan is either practising or competing around the state's circuits, hitting speeds of more than 100 kilometres an hour.
I'm just thinking to win all the time.
Heats hit the water early with more than 100 surfers gunning for glory. The 1 metre waves giving them every opportunity to perform. The finals will be surfed along the Cliff to Merewether Beach stretch tomorrow morning. At Lake Macquarie, 10-pin bowlers rolled up for their chance at a one-off invitation to represent Australia in England. The Best of British tournament is a forerunner to the British 10-pin Open, which will be held in September. Steve Watley from Bennett's Green won the spot to represent Australian amateur bowlers. And celebrations for Newcastle tonight after the Adamstown Rosebud win in the State Soccer Super League finals decider against the Warringah Dolphins. Rosebud dominated the game, Dale Robertson putting up the home side's first goal and captain David Bock the second. Graham Jennings bounced another 2 off the upright and Liam Maguire put away 2 more in the second half for the 4-0 result. After a finals drought of 5 years, the win puts the Rosebuds through to the grand final of the Super League, to be played in Sydney in September.
Just minutes after the fire broke out at about 11 o'clock, flames had already licked their way into 7 rooms, shattering windows and turning the brick and tile building into a furnace. Fire crews quickly evacuated the 40 guests who awoke to sirens. 2 people were rescued after climbing from their windows onto the roof. Others looked on in stunned silence. Fortunately, no one was hurt. After about an hour, the flames were beaten, but not without taking their toll. 7 rooms were totally gutted. The extent extent of the structural damage yet to be tallied. In the light of day, owner Bruce Mays was still coming to terms with the nightmare.
What I can see, most of the top floor is going to be demolished and start from square one up from the roof of the ground floor.
Investigators probed the ruins today, searching for a cause of the fire. The motel's owners say the blow was particularly cruel. They'd only just finished major renovations.
Renovations to the foyer and restaurant were finished on Friday, and we purchased this property 8 years ago today. Happy birthday.
It's thought it will be some months before the motel reopens. At present, the whole building is unusable with no power, gas or water supplies. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
This is the ugly side of coal mining. The 2.5 kilometre wide, 200 metre deep crater, all that is left of the Ravensworth No. 2 mine near Singleton. Just down the road is the Bayswater Power Station, which produces about a third of the state's electricity. It also produces 1.5 million tonnes of ash every year, which until now had been dumped into dams near the station. But there appears to be a solution to both problems. The ash is treated before being pumped to the crater, 300 tonnes spewing into the hole every hour.
Well, combined with the need to get rid of the ash from the power station, it's the most economically and environmentally satisfactory solution for both problems.
The void is a consequence of the excavation for mining, and it's good to see those voids put to an asset value of benefit, and the benefit is cost-effective, sound disposal of an ash product.
It's the combined work of the Ravensworth Rehabilitation Service, Pacific Power and John Holland Engineers. The $35 million scheme officially launched today by the owner of John Holland, Janet Holmes Court. But it will still be many years before the tap is turned off. A hole like this will take about 30 years to fill. The surface will then be covered with vegetation. The ultimate aim, to have cattle once again grazing on this land. Interest is already being shown by other mines throughout Australia, but the reality is there's simply not enough ash to fill every coal crater in the country. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It's a frightening fact, but male drivers between the ages of 17 and 25 are involved in a quarter of all fatal car crashes, yet they account for just 8% of licence holders. It's a statistic which authorities want to dramatically change, and they believe fathers are the key.
The thing that hasn't been looked at particularly is the role of fathers in talking to their sons, because often it's the father who's involved in the driving, like educating the son about driving in some way, and it's the father's values and attitudes that we think are going to be key things in what their sons do.
Richard Fletcher has long been involved in issues relating to men's health. He'll head a team of researchers who'll carry out an extensive study on the influences fathers have on their sons' driving and how to make sure they're a positive role model. The study has the backing of the NRMA, the country's largest insurer.
So we know already from what we've talked to with fathers, they feel embarrassed a bit, saying, now I did this, but don't you. And what we're trying to find is a more constructive way for fathers to talk about their own risks that they took.
The study should take some 6 months to complete, and the findings will be used by authorities to develop road safety campaigns aimed at reducing the number of men killed or injured on our roads every year. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
"12 days ago, 32-year-old Stephen Kimberley received a phone call that changed his life. A kidney was available. For Stephen, this meant freedom from the dialysis machine he'd been hooked up to for the past 4 years, an end to the restrictions and tiredness that cost him his full-time job and active sporting life. Now, following the organ transplant, he's looking forward to a new life.
I will be now able to go back to my hometown,
back to work. I will be able to eat what everybody else can eat. I'll be able to drink like a normal person.
Every year, around 80 patients in the Hunter region start dialysis treatment. Across Australia, more than 1,600 people are waiting for a kidney transplant. Organ donation is the focus of this year's National Kidney Week.
It's a reminder of all of us to tick our licences, tell our families that we want to be an organ donor and just help those people who are out there waiting on transplant lists.
Today, the John Hunter Hospital opened up a free kidney screening service for visitors and staff. For 1 week, they'll test for kidney problems. They'll also help educate people about organ donation. Australia has one of the lowest rates of organ donation in the world. While the Hunter region may be leading the way with a donation rate twice the national average, there is still much to do. The key, according to health authorities, is communication, telling family whether or not you want to be an organ donor.
To people like myself, this is better than winning lotto. You could offer me $5 million or a kidney and I'd take the kidney any day.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Gone are the days of tireless searching through library shelves for a snippet of information. Now the touch of a keyboard can give you the same thing and more. In an effort to keep up with changing trends and offer the most up-to-date information on the local region, Spears Point Library is offering public access to the internet.
We see people using it for tourism, people who need to find information out from council about dog registrations or about buildings. We see students using it for doing their home assignments. People are using it for researching their family tree.
It's hoped all Lake Macquarie Library branches will soon provide the service known as Information Hunter. And for those who have trouble with computers, there is help at hand.
It's very easy to use, but for those getting started, we've got free lessons, but in a very short time people are using it themselves.
Following the closure of Redhead Tip some years ago, residents on the eastern side of the lake have been forced to travel to Awabba to dump their garbage. The Council's Environmental Services Committee has now recommended an initial $25,000 contract with the McCloy Company to design a new waste disposal facility to the development application stage.
There is a process to be followed. An environmental impact statement will need to accompany the application. We will advertise the proposal. Adjoining neighbours will be contacted.
If the development application is accepted, Lake Macquarie residents will at last have their own waste transfer facility on the eastern side of the lake. If successful, the depot, worth about $1.7 million, will be built in Oakdale Road at Gateshead.
It'll provide essentially a tipping facility for general waste, which is suitable to go to landfill, but there will also be provision on site for receival of green waste and other recyclable material.
Once operational, the council will cancel its bulk waste collection service to ensure the new service is financially viable. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
The Newcastle office of the DPP decides whether or not to prosecute people accused of serious crimes. But in June last year, the department was itself the target of an arson attack. An inquiry into the fire today heard that kerosene was splashed in the hallway and reception area. Detective Senior Constable Garth Christian, heading the investigation, said the arsonist's intention was to cause maximum damage, but starved of oxygen, the fire didn't properly ignite. The office was, however, severely damaged, but amazingly few files were lost. Police believe the arsonist had an intricate knowledge of the building. They knew where keys were hidden, were able to evade motion detectors and were aware of the officers' firefighting equipment. Water hoses were cut and 3 fire doors had putty placed in the locks, making it difficult for firefighters to enter the building. Detective Christian said the arsonist tried to hide his knowledge by placing jemmy marks on doors police know were opened by a key, and then this anti-nuclear symbol was painted on a wall, which police believe was meant to confuse their inquiry. As to who lit the fire, police have followed numerous leads, including anonymous phone calls to the Newcastle Herald, which suggested police involvement. A Newcastle businessman facing criminal charges was also thought to have a possible motive. The inquiry continues tomorrow. Jodie McKay, NBN News.